Hello, and welcome to the March edition of the Corporate ESG 5 and 5 podcast, the podcast in which we spend 5 minutes exploring the 5 key ESG trends set to shape the market this month. I'm Helen Ferguson from ESG Advisory, and I'll be taking you through this month's key trends. Starting on institutional developments, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has released their 6th landmark report, sounding the alarm over the intensifying impacts of climate change. The report warns that the world faces worsening climate hazards over the next 2 decades as global temperatures continue to be driven up by human activity. The findings of the report highlight how deforestation, pollution, and land use change are hampering nature's ability to provide essential services to human life, such as coastal protection, food supply, and climate regulation through the capture and storage of carbon from the atmosphere. The report calls for drastic and concerted action to bring down emissions, providing the strongest call yet for protection of nature to be placed at the heart of efforts to tackle climate change, warning that safeguarding and strengthening nature is critical to securing a livable future. Moving on to disclosure, ClimateWorks Foundation has announced the launch of Carbon Call, a new initiative with participation from over 20 companies, including Microsoft, EY, and KPMG, aimed at addressing the need for a reliable and interoperable global carbon emissions accounting system. The initiative will mobilise collective investment and resources towards expanding transparent, comprehensive and regular emissions reporting from companies to help facilitate the road to achieving net zero. Within the sustainable primary capital markets, we have seen a few interesting transactions. S&P Global, the data ratings and analytics provider, has issued a sustainability-linked bond as part of a debt restructuring exercise following its merger with IHS Markit. This is the first sustainability-linked bond from a rating agency, and only the second one in the software and technology services sector. The bond includes a unique combination of KPIs, including Scope 3 emissions relating to business travel and procurement spend focused on diversity. Secondly, Hurtigruten Group has issued the first green bond as a cruise line operator. It's also the first high-yield ESG labelled bond with project categories focused on retrofitting sea vessels and research and development dedicated to low-carbon fuel vessels and technologies. And lastly, Honda Motor has issued a multi-tranche green bond, and one of the interesting points to note here is that their framework has a strong focus on additionality, with Honda Motor committed to excluding refinancing of existing projects, whilst the look-back period of up to 36 months is often included in similar frameworks. Moving on to carbon markets. In July 2021, NatWest Group, along with CIBC, Intel Unibanco, and National Australia Bank, announced plans to launch the world's first voluntary carbon marketplace, which will provide infrastructure to enable the reliable, secure, and scalable trading of voluntary carbon credits. 3 other banks have now publicly joined the platform: UBS, Standard Chartered, and BNP Paribas, forming a group of 7 banks now involved. The voluntary carbon market is seen as having a role to play in supporting companies to meet net zero greenhouse gas emission targets, and is expected to grow rapidly over the next few years. Lastly, on the investors front, Allianz Global Investors has mentioned that it will vote against executive pay policies at large European companies that fail to include ESG metrics in their remuneration guidelines. Furthermore, it's also mentioned that it will strengthen its voting rules on ethnic diversity to ensure companies within the US and UK come up with a diversity approach beyond gender. And lastly, AXA Investment Managers has recently established its first social and sustainable bond fund that aims to deliver positive social impact, such as job creation and healthcare. The fund will focus on 3 key themes: empowerment to promote access to education, as well as inclusion to promote access to basic needs and health and safety. Thanks for listening to this month's Corporate ESG 5 and 5. I hope you found it useful. As always, please be sure to check out our monthly newsletter, linked in the description, for more on the key ESG trends shaping the market this month. And if you liked this episode, please follow the channel and click the notification bell so that you can get future episodes as soon as they're released. Thanks again, and see you next time.